Well, it is midnight in Paris. No, only a few more days and it'll be midnight here when it's 7 p.m. with you guys. And my lovely little Solly Bobs just smacked me in the head with a scratch post. I was just trying to assemble all the greetings cards that I need to get together to get down to Somerset in the southwest of England for my mum to take with her to Spain, because she and my dad go out to Spain for 3 months and managed to get Mother's Day out of the way because, as you may know, we had Mother's Day last weekend, the weekend before, just recently anyway, not yesterday, 2 days ago. The weekend before that was Mother's Day in the UK. And sorry, I just catch my breath. Yes. But then this is my year. It goes February, my sister's birthday, March, Mother's Day, April, my mum's birthday, May, my dad's birthday, June, Father's Day. Not sure if there's anything in July, but I think there might be. Yeah. But we're here now, and I've got all my cards written, and I've got them all in one big envelope, and I've weighed the envelope and got the right postage. Hey, Chris. And so I can take that round to the post office tomorrow, get it down to Somerset by the weekend before they leave for Spain. And then I don't have to worry. It's not so much the cost, although it is a cost. Obviously, we've all got to be careful, especially now. It can take 3 or 4 weeks. Sometimes you just don't know when it's ever coming. So, and it's just me and my sister. So it's not nice for them not to get any acknowledgement that we're thinking about them. Yeah, we can phone them, we could send them an e-card, and I know we're trying to save trees and everything, but just a couple of times a year, it's nice for my elderly parents to get a little keepsake that they can hang on to that says, you mean enough for us to make a little bit of effort. We bothered because you matter. So that's that. As I said, it is after midnight in Paris. I am Mama, and the cafe is open. So, ladies, I'm not. I'm an awful, awful daughter, Amy. I'm terrible. You ask my parents, I don't ring them enough. I don't tell them enough. I try and deal with all my own problems by myself because I don't want to worry them, and I don't want them to interfere. Because I'm 50 years old and I've been on my own all my life, either just me or me and the boys. And it's what I'm used to. I can't always guarantee that there'll be somebody there to help me out. So I've learned to be quite resilient myself. So I just crack on. And anybody getting in the way of that is just a hindrance, which is not a very loving attitude. And I don't mean it to be unloving. And I love them to pieces. And I love the way they are with my boys and with their granddaughter and their great grandson and great granddaughter. And, it's lovely. It's nice to be part of a lovely family. We've got our own dysfunctions, like everybody, but we pretty much try and all pull in the same direction. And I think that counts for a lot. So anyway, I've been waffling for 5 minutes. Yeah, no, they love me too much. That's the problem. They would be on the phone to me every single day, several times a day if I let them, and I don't. And I'm trying to meet them halfway. I'm trying to get myself closer to where they are. But it's hard, I've got set in my ways. And sometimes I just need to crack on. Sometimes there aren't enough hours in the day to do everything you've got to do. And you just know when troubles come, they come not single spies, but in battalions. And that's my experience. You can have a few quiet days and then suddenly, oh my God, everything that can go wrong does go wrong. And you just need to be able to get your head down and sort it all out. But if I need help. Always, always know where to go. So, who's ready for a little look under the surface of Stephen Miller then? I know, I'm not sure I want to either. Oh, it's always already feel like I need a shower just having done the research. Um, so I warn you now, it's odd. He comes across as not the most likable of characters. I know that's a spoiler. I know none of you were expecting that, but genuinely there are quite a few instances where Stephen Miller is quite an odious twat, to be fair. And I am playing that down. He's much worse. So if you're all ready with your bean bags, your comfy chairs, your snuggly blankets, your adult beverages, or your milky drinks, then I shall begin. So, yeah, you probably need the strong drink tonight. Just saying. Okay, so Stephen Miller, the man who looks like he was assembled in a lab by somebody who'd only ever read a description of a human being, not actually met one. The man who genuinely seems to find children being separated from their parents a logistical inconvenience rather than a moral catastrophe. The architect, the shadow always lurking in the background. The thing. So is he Nosferatu? Is he Dr. Frankenstein? Or is he just small man syndrome in the most consequential bad suit in American political history? Well, let's find out. So, who is he? Stephen N. Miller. Didn't find out what the N stands for, but I think we might know. Born August 23rd, 1985. So he's only 40. God, he looks more mature, would be a kind way of saying my impression of how he looks. Currently serving as the White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy and Homeland Security Advisor, having previously been Senior Advisor and Director of Speech Writing throughout Trump's first term, which does explain rather a lot. His politics, now they've been described variously as far right, no shocker there, anti immigration, really, you don't say, and white nationalist, no shit, Sherlock. He grew up in Santa Monica, California, which really surprised me. That happens to be a city that voted between 71 and 86% in favor of Kamala Harris in 2024. So that pretty much already tells you quite a lot of what you need to know about his relationship with his own community. I'm just saying, different views, that's all. You may think that would make him an outcast, a figure of hatred, somebody you would cross the street to avoid. I don't know. I'm just saying you might think those things. We only bring facts. But he is quite literally the thing his neighbours voted against. That's just fact, isn't it? That's not opinion, that's counting, as the lovely Mr. James O'Brien would say. And before anybody starts to think, oh, but lots of people hold conservative views, that's just politics. I want you to stay with me tonight, because what we're going to go through is not a set of political opinions, it's a documented ideology. These are core beliefs constructed in childhood, accelerated in college, and then handed a microphone in the West Wing. The receipts go back decades, and we have all of them. So get ready. Hey, Summer. I always feel like I'm welcoming a change in the seasons when I say, "Hey, summer." So, the origin story. Don't you apologise at all, young lady. We're very glad to have you here. Um, the monster in the making. Or is he? I don't know. I'm just going to give you the facts and you decide because that's what we do here. We don't make judgments. So let's start at the very beginning because Stephen Miller did not just wake up one day fully formed in a bad suit. The horror receipts go way back to adolescence. No shock there. Middle school. What was little Stevie like in middle school? I know I've previously suggested that I get a whiff of somebody who was relentlessly bullied and mercilessly picked on because he just was horrible and really hard to love. But I don't know that for sure. What we do know is that he was already drawn to right wing subcultures by the time he was in middle school. He purchased a subscription to Guns and Ammo magazine and found himself inspired by the writings of one Charlton Heston and Wayne Lapierre on the Second Amendment. And anybody who's seen the NRA wheel out their keynote speakers will probably have seen the Charlton Heston speech. He was 12, though, little Stevie, at this time, when most kids that age are obsessed with football or bad video games. He was subscribing to gun magazines and idolizing the NRA. Red flag or more of a red flag parade? So he grew up in Santa Monica, Amy, in California. I know, it's hard to believe. Just normal leave it to beaver kind of boy. Exactly, Summer. I couldn't have put it better. Just your average buddy. High school. He went to Santa Monica High School, known locally as Samohi. Samohi. I don't know exactly how you pronounce it, but it's just the initials Samohi. Samohi. And this is where his villain identity really leveled up. This is where he beat the big boss and he got to the next level of villainy. I know, I know, Amy. Santa Monica, you wouldn't think so. It's weird that he didn't fit in, isn't it? Um, so that school, the Santa Monica High School, was, in the words of those who knew it, apparently neatly internally segregated between professional class, college bound whites and working class Hispanics. And young Stephen, yeah, found his entry point to the right via the Larry Elder Show. I'm not familiar with it, but apparently this is a show with a black host who'd built a following among right wing Angelinos for his verbal assaults on political correctness. So I can imagine, and I'm sure you can imagine, unless you happen to know the Larry Elder Show, which you may well do. Miller loved it though. He was consuming it as a teenager, already shaping his worldview. Now, here's where the small man syndrome diagnosis starts to crystallize. And we probably all heard what AOC said about him being only 4'10". He's 5'10". But I think inside he's only 4'10", if you get me. Yeah. Every account of Miller at Samohi paints the same portrait. A boy who craved attention through provocation. He was the original rage baiter before there was even a term for rage bait. He played the victim the moment anyone pushed back, though, so he really was quite a loathsome creature. It sounds, I don't know for certain, that's just how it sounds to me, in my opinion. His classmates apparently recall him telling Hispanic students, "This is America, speak English only." I know. An American telling somebody else to speak English. I'm not going to comment. I'm not going to comment. You all do a great job. You do a wonderful, wonderful job. I can almost understand some of you as well. I'm just teasing. Yes, and I'm learning Spanish, so fuck you, Stephen Miller. And then the second anyone would retaliate if confronted with this "don't speak Spanish, Johnny Foreigner" attitude from Stephen Miller, either physically or vocally, he would run to an administrator and say that he was the one being bullied. Oh my God, I thought I couldn't hate him more. I'm so sorry, Stephen Miller. I'm sure you're a lovely. No, I'm not. I just, no, something's gone wrong, hasn't it, honey? Something's gone really, really wrong. Not enough cuddles? I don't know. I don't know. I'm only speculating. One quote was, "No one that I saw was ever unkind to him. No one beat him up. He was the least victimized person, and yet somehow in his mind, he was constantly put upon." Hmm. It's just not hard to believe, is it? That's all I'm saying. You see Stephen Miller and you think perpetual victim, whiny little shitbag. You may not. I do. And that's my opinion, just based on my perception of the whiny little shitbag. So, sorry, Stephen. He's manufacturing victimhood at age 16. Something's gone wrong, people. This is the foundational Stephen Miller move. This is his go to. He has been running it at the national level ever since. His classmates also recall him saying that minorities are too busy complaining to succeed. Well, Mr. Middle Class White Man, they kind of had a lot to complain about, didn't they? Yeah, let's be honest. And whose fault was that? I'm not saying it was your fault specifically, Stevie, but He also had the view that Hispanics were overrepresented in Congress. I guess maths was not his strong point either. His former classmate, somebody called Keisha Ram, who later became a Vermont state legislator, delivered possibly the most devastating line ever written about Stephen Miller. Oh, I don't know. Give me some time. The nicest thing I can say about him is that he stared the future of the country with all its diversity and glorious richness in the face and rejected it openly. No change there then. Brutal, accurate. I don't think any of us will disagree, but that sounds entirely possible. And then the high school yearbook. What beautiful pearls of wisdom did little Stevie M leave for generations to be inspired by? Most teenagers write something like Hags, Hags, or quote their favourite song lyrics. Stevie wrote, "There can be no 50-50 Americanism in this country." So in his high school yearbook, he was 17. He wasn't even remotely fully cooked. And he's writing for posterity, for all to see, there can be no 50-50 Americanism in this country. Well, don't worry, Stephen, honey. I don't think there is, but it ain't going to stop us fighting for it. All right, good. Hey, Rhonda, welcome. Come in, pull up a chair, grab a beanbag, wrap yourself in a nice blanket or duvet, milky drink or adult beverage. You may want to go for the latter because we're doing Stephen Miller. And we haven't even left high school and already he's a horror. But my favourite, the one I'd already heard about, and I think I published something a while ago on Substack about Tell us all that you were horrendously bullied in childhood without saying you were horrendously bullied in childhood. This was the one that really got me. The bin. Have we all heard the bin story? If you haven't, buckle up. This is, I don't even have any smart words to describe something this grotesque. This detail tells you everything. At both high school and college, Miller was repeatedly observed throwing rubbish on the floor and then insisting that the custodial staff pick it up, saying, and I quote, this is an official quote, "Am I the only one here who is sick and tired of being told to pick up my trash when we have plenty of janitors who are paid to do it for us?" I mean, if there's anything disqualifying for a life of public service, that's got to be on the list, surely. Horrible, horrible little man. He also published in the local paper, oh yes, ideas of grandeur at a very early age. An opinion piece in 2002, when he was only 16 years old, arguing that very few, if any, Hispanic students made it to honours classes because the school provides a crutch to those who don't speak English. He published that in a newspaper at 16 in his local community. I'm kind of shocked that he didn't get treated badly because I'm doing everything I can to keep my aggressive feelings suppressed, right sized. Because punching people in the face may feel good when they're as much of an arsehole as Stephen Miller, but it's the wrong thing to do. And we do not condone violence, right, girls? Right. Unbelievable, except completely believable. And there's a description that ties it all together from a classmate, and I quote, "He's exactly the same as he was in high school. His manner of speaking, his permanent air of trolling. He has a drive for pissing off people." 30 years later, same energy, different suit, same bin, same rubbish on the floor. Cretin. University, shall we see what happened there? We've done the Nosferatu phase. Let's see what happens when Dr. Frankenstein finds his laboratory. So he went to Duke. They can't be all stupid. I mean, I'm not suggesting he's any stupid, just, maybe ignorant, maybe dumb as a brick. Anything's possible. But somehow he got into Duke. I don't know how admissions works in the US. Maybe you can pay your way in. Maybe he did. Sure, he probably didn't, unless that's allowed, in which case it's entirely his choice. But however, he got to Duke University in the mid 2000s, and there is absolutely no suggestion that he got there in any way other than completely legitimately. Okay? So anybody thinking, don't know how he got into Duke, you're just going to have to take that away because there's nothing to suggest anything untoward happened. Okay. Did he tone it down when he got to college? What do we think? Anybody? Anybody? No, you're all correct. He did not. He escalated because why not? And of course he did. He joined the Duke University Conservative Union and became its executive director. I know. But here's where it gets genuinely chilling because the rest of it, that's just been warming you up to ice cold. Because at Duke, Miller didn't just find fellow provocateurs, he found the white nationalists. Yay! I don't mean yay. I mean, oh my God, the world would be a better place if we could stop with the extremism. I don't care what flavour of extremism you are, knock it off. You're all wrong. And that's just my opinion. During his Duke years, he came into contact with Richard Spencer. Yes, that Richard Spencer, the man credited with coining the term alt-right and head of the white nationalist National Policy Institute. Spencer was pursuing graduate studies at Duke while Miller was an undergraduate, so he kind of looked up to him and revered him, and yeah, things went downhill fast. According to reporting, Spencer served as a graduate advisor for the Duke Conservative Union while Miller led it. So they were very closely affiliated during that time. Together, they worked on bringing a leading white nationalist to speak at the university in 2007. This person's name was Peter Brimelow. He is the founder of VDare.com, VDARE.com, a hub for white nationalists and anti-Semites who decry non-white immigration. None of this is shocking. I mean, it's all shocking and appalling, but none of it is like, oh, really? I wouldn't have expected that. I totally expected all of this. It's just horrible seeing it in actual written down words. You know, he gives the air of white nationalism, but there's good foundations for that set of beliefs. Very consistent, Summer, very. And I'm sure Duke probably do everything they can to distance themselves from any former students who don't paint the university in a good light. Now, I'm not saying who those students might be, just that they probably would not want to be associated with total arseholes. Miller, though, honest broker of the facts that he is, has denied any meaningful relationship with Spencer. Spencer, meanwhile, confirmed it, rather gleefully, telling a reporter, I knew him very well when I was at Duke, but I'm kind of glad no one's talked about this because I don't want to harm Trump. Yeah, that's something that concerns us all. Keeps me awake at night. That's me being facetious, by the way. What keeps me awake at night is him being awake at night. It's kind of a Hegseth move on that front, but in reverse. Spencer protecting Miller. Just a beautiful circle of manhood going on in the Trump administration. I'm sure you will all agree. If you're crazy. And then there's what Miller himself called his greatest college achievement. Not a dissertation, no. Not even a research project even. Not academic excellence of any kind. Following the Duke lacrosse case, Miller defended the accused players on national television, on Nancy Grace. We love Nancy Grace. Do we all love Nancy Grace? Hands up who loves Nancy Grace. I think she's insane, but in a great way. And that's just my opinion. And that was on the O'Reilly factor, arguing, this is Stephen Miller, who was arguing on behalf of the lacrosse team, that they'd been presumed guilty for what reason? Oh, yeah, you guessed it. For being white males. Poor babies. One of the most persecuted groups in society. Again, I'm being facetious. He later told The Atlantic that this appearance on cable news as a teenage political agitator, arguing for the poor underclass of white men, was his proudest college moment, his greatest achievement. I shit you not. Because you can't make this shit up. Because you'd probably get sued. But we're fine, because it's all true. This tells you everything about what he was building at such an early age as well. this that that's what he thought success looked like. So it's not really surprising where we find ourselves now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So where do we go next? Well, I check the time and I see we're halfway through, so that's beautiful. I won't run over today. I promise. He is a determined little shit, Summer. Thank you. That's very eloquently stated, in my opinion. So, the Breitbart emails. Are we familiar with this particular episode in little Stevie M's life? I wasn't, but I am now. 900 emails. In 2019, the Southern Poverty Law Centre, great organisation. I know they need support. So if that's your thing and you're looking for an organisation to support, you could do a lot worse than support the Southern Poverty Law Centre. They published what can only be described as Stephen Miller's ideology in his own words. From March 2015 to June 2016, Miller sent over 900 emails to Breitbart news editors. Former Breitbart editor Katie McHugh, who has since renounced the far right completely, leaked the emails to the Southern Poverty Law Centre. And I am totally with her for that. You go, Katie. Whatever your previous leanings were, you did the right thing. Yeah, well, I don't know, Summer. Maybe it was more than 900, but that's all they'd got. But they hit their daily send limit. I don't know. I don't know. But 900 is it's more than one, isn't it? And I don't think any of us listening or watching or catching the recording have sent one email to Breitbart news editors. Have we? Anybody? No. No, I don't think so. So, what was in these emails? Because it might just be, an up and coming political agitator trying to find his place in the political sphere. Could have been, and kind of was, if I'm honest. An examination of these emails found that 80% of the messages pertained to race or immigration. Yes, Summer, only 80%. I know, don't waste your energy typing it. I'm teasing, you know that. The emails touted eugenics, white nationalist conspiracy theories, and offered news tips to Breitbart on how to cover immigration. Also, how to amplify stories about Black and Hispanic crime. Beautiful, isn't it? Oh, Amy was typing that time. I love you guys. You know me too well. And I know you too well, so stop it. Behave yourselves. Just appalling. Shall I read that again? Because we've got time. His emails, 80% of the messages pertained to eugenics, as in promoting eugenics, not just information about eugenics, offering it as a good idea. White nationalist conspiracy theories, and I'm guessing he wasn't trying to debunk white nationalist conspiracy theories, and he was offering news tips on how to cover immigration and how to amplify stories about Black and Hispanic crime. How fucking insecure do you have to be to spend your formative years engaged in such absolute cruddery? And I don't even know if cruddery is a word, but if it's not, get Laura to add it to the Tracictionary, the Mummictionary, whatever we call it. Unbelievable. Katie McHugh told the Southern Poverty Law Centre that And this is the line that really should be on a plaque somewhere. And if it's not, I'm happy to chip in. And I'll even start a GoFundMe to get Stephen Miller this plaque. We could put it under the January the 6th Heroes plaque. And when I say under, I mean, against the wall, and then we'll put the plaque on top of his plaque. Yeah. This is a quote. What Stephen Miller sent to me in those emails has become policy at the Trump administration. That's from Katie McHugh. That's just her opinion, but I can see why she might have that opinion. Doesn't mean she's right, or there aren't other opinions that are available. That's all I'm going to say. He was recommending white nationalist literature, including a racist French novel called The Camp of the Saints, which was popular, because I know none of you've read it, among neo-Nazis and white nationalists. And it's all about fictionalization of the Great Replacement conspiracy theory, because of course it was. He was citing white nationalist websites, including American Renaissance, which he referred to frequently by its nickname AmRen, American Renaissance AmRen, as do many within the broader alt-right, flagging articles on crime statistics and race, and advancing pieces to be cited when Breitbart covered race and crime, so that they could really load all the guns and get them firing to get the right wing fired up about how it's all those black and brown people causing all that trouble. Yeah. Anyone who thinks slavery was abolished in the United States does not understand the for-profit prison system in the United States. That's all I'm saying. Look it up. I'm not doing all the work. I'm telling you about Stephen Miller. I've got stuff to do. So, what are his policies? Well, I mean, we've laid the foundations, haven't we? This is where ideology meets actual real life children. It's the part where trolling provocateur stops being a punchline and becomes a catalogue of genuine human suffering. Nothing funny about this. Because all of the school stuff, bins on the floor, the yearbook quotes, all the emails, this is what it was building towards. First, we have the Muslim ban. Oh, it disgusts me saying that sentence. It's not just me, is it? That feels nasty coming out of my mouth. But it was a thing. It happened. I'm describing accurately a horrible event in history. In a progressive, democratic country, the leaders of the free world. What the F is going on? I don't know why I decided to replace fuck there with an F, but I think because my mouth was already feeling badly enough behaved from saying the other bit, but I'm not going to repeat. Trump instigated this, and it will not surprise anybody to know that Miller played a significant role in crafting the actual ban itself and its rollout, alongside one Steve Bannon. Oh, yes, it's Mr. Epstein Files himself. Oh, no, that's Donnie, isn't it? Is it Donnie or is it Steve? I forget. Who's more in the Epstein Files? There's Jeffrey Epstein, there's Ghislaine Maxwell, Steve Bannon, Donald Trump. That's about it, isn't it? Epstein, Maxwell, the President of the United States and his deputy advisor. No, sorry. The guy who just shows up. Batshit Bannon. Thank you, Summer. Yeah. And I must stress that every mention of Steve Bannon, who's in the Epstein Files, and Donald Trump who's also in the Epstein files many, 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 many times, these mentions could be completely innocent. And I wouldn't want anybody to get the impression that I'm suggesting they are anything other than completely innocent, that they somehow imply guilt or horrific behavior by these two middle aged elderly white men. They might. We don't know because we haven't seen them, have we, Pammy Joe? You want to sort that before you have to go and testify under oath. Just a suggestion, you don't have to do it. And yes, I think Summer's comment refers to a picture dictionary. If you look up creep, you'd find Bannon's picture next to it. Stinky creep, I think, would also, it would be sea creep. So what was this policy all about? Solly, don't do that, darling. I'm trying to talk to the nice people. No, 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 no. That's not for you to play with. Thank you, Pipette. Come and sit on my lap if you want to. So stop it. Anyway, we know what the ban entailed. It faced immediate legal scrutiny, as it should. It took 18 months and 3 attempts, 3 revisions, before it even withstood the initial legal challenges. 3 versions, because the first 2 were so legally indefensible, they couldn't survive passage through the courts, so they had to keep changing it. Solly Bobos. Oh, Solly wants to play. In a minute, Bubby, we're nearly done. But this isn't the most heinous. I mean, I'm sure if I was Muslim, I would think it was pretty much up there at the top of the super heinous list. But I think we can all agree that the family separation policy was absolutely horrific. This is the one that really should follow him forever. He saw the separation of families not as an unfortunate byproduct of a deterrence policy, rather as a tool. According to 3 former officials, he devised plans that would have separated even more children than actually were separated. He advocated for separating all immigrant families, even those going through civil court proceedings. And we've seen what the Trump administration, certainly Trump 2.0, think of the courts. A tool to be used if they possibly can for Trump and his cronies' enrichment and persecution of anybody who looks at him funny. Certainly not there to protect the rights of the people. And that just kills me. It doesn't. Obviously, I'm being hyperbolic, but it breaks my heart that good, decent American men, women, and children and visitors to those shores are being so appallingly treated by a bunch of arseholes. Sorry, I don't have anything more eloquent to call them, but in my opinion, they really are a bunch of arseholes. There isn't a decent one among them, the administration, the Trump 2.0 administration, in my opinion. While zero tolerance ultimately separated nearly 3,000 children from their parents, 3,000 children taken away from their parents, 3,000 little lives disturbed and uprooted, and harm done to those innocent little creatures forever. If they, if they're lucky. I mean, if they manage to get on with their lives, they're always going to have the horror. I mean, just think little Liam Ramos. 3,000 of those, 3,000 little Liam Ramoses. Want to hear what makes it worse? 'Cause there is stuff. Miller originally proposed that number would have been an additional 25,000. 25,000 separated children. Solly Bobbles, you're making everything judder, and then people will look and they'll say, "Why are you wobbling, Mama? Can you not? Can you get down, Poppet? What are you doing? Gotta get down. Oh, get down, Poppet. Good boy. Sorry about that. 25,000 extra children. The plan existed. It was on paper. Someone wrote that down. He meant business. This wasn't just, oh, wouldn't it be nice if there was an extra 25,000? That was the plan. I know he does. He really wants my attention. Sorry, Solly Bobbles, you can come back. Nobody wants to listen to me. They want to hear what you've got to say on the subject of Stephen Miller. You'd rip his throat out, wouldn't you? Because he's a wild animal. I mean, he's kind of domesticated because he lives with us, but we're kind of nuts, so he's not as domesticated as you might think. At a White House meeting where officials debated the separation policy, Miller accused anyone opposing zero tolerance of being a lawbreaker and un-American, saying, and I quote, "If we don't enforce this, it is the end of our country as we know it." The end of the country. Because families arriving at the border asking for asylum are what? Terrifying threats to his manhood, maybe. The government, his government, after this policy was put into practice, couldn't find the parents of 666 of the children they'd separated. How fucking careless do you have to be to not make some sort of a reliable record? 666 children still missing at the last count. Appalling. I cannot imagine how terrifying and confusing those poor babies. A report by Physicians for Human Rights concluded that the Trump administration's family separation policies, Miller's policies, mind you, rise to the level of torture. And I don't disagree. That's their finding. Other people may have found differently, but I concur. The report noted that Miller, as a state actor who conceived of the policy, stated its intention was deterrence, but there's clear evidence that trauma was inflicted deliberately. I don't know who it was who said there's a jail cell with his name on it, but oh my God, you're so right. If there's not, happy to chip in to build it. DACA. You know what he did to DACA? Miller is credited with the Trump's administration decision to cancel DACA. This was President Obama's measure to protect from deportation undocumented immigrants who were brought into the US as children. The dreamers. The dreamer generation. People who grew up American. People who only know America. Who had American friends and American dreams and American futures. Some even only spoke English. Gone. Because Stephen Miller wanted them gone. Can you imagine? Can you imagine being taken to a foreign country as a baby, growing up, living there your whole life, and then being kicked off to some country you know nothing about necessarily? You might have strong ties, but you might not. Didn't matter. You're out. Always children. always comes for the children. That's why I said it at the beginning. Evil man. It seems to me, in my opinion. So that's Trump 1.0. It's not got any better, has it, folks? The monster at full power is what we see in 2.0. So if term one was Miller building the machine, term two is definitely him running it. Nobody is left in the room to slow him down. All the grown-ups have left the building. Trump made Miller his deputy chief of staff for policy when he returned to the White House. And under his oversight, the administration hit the ground running. A flood of executive orders. Sorry, I've got a hair somewhere in my eye. A systematic dismantling of immigration infrastructure, and Miller's masterstroke, using the Alien Enemies Act. A law from 1798, I remind you. I'm sure we're all familiar with the fact that this wasn't recently on the statute books, but 1798 is when the Alien Enemies Act was created, and apparently is still just as good now, like almost 150 years later. 250 years later? 250 years later. Well, 230 years later, let's say. And he used it to carry out these rapid deportations that we've seen. And thank God there are some courts that are standing up for the law and for what's right and for people's human rights. He used it on Venezuelan gang members, but he used it on anybody he could possibly claim were gang members. He used it so fast that courts scrambled to respond and just didn't keep up in the early days. And it's hardly surprising. I don't blame them initially. And then May 2025 came the moment that made constitutional lawyers' heads explode. Miller confirmed publicly that the administration was, and we have another quote, actively looking at suspending habeas corpus. Any followers of Glenn Kirshner will know habeas corpus is where it's at. It's where it all begins and ends in terms of the criminal process and your rights, the great writ. It's your right to be presented before a court if you're going to be detained and plead your case. So no detention without representation, basically. He added, I don't know why I'm laughing because it's just not funny. I think it's shock. It depends whether the courts do the right thing or not. So whether or not they were going to suspend habeas corpus, whether or not they were going to deny people due process, depended on whether the courts actually gave them their due process when they turned up in front of them. So long as the courts continued in the suppression of people's rights and the trampling all over the Constitution, then that's fine. You can still go before a court. But if the court started finding that these people's human rights, constitutional rights, have been trampled all over and finding in their favour and judging that they can't be held indiscriminately for endless periods of time without any charges or convictions or due process, then they would have to think about changing the process. It's disgusting. I don't have superlatives big enough to describe how it all makes me feel. I can't quite believe it. I'm in a state of disbelief. I think if it really hit, I don't think you'd ever leave the house, would you? It's just too horrific that there are people that exist in the world that are this dark. We know there probably are. We've seen the horror movies, but to know they walk among us, a shiver down my spine. Which is funny because that's the same reaction I get every time I see Nosferatu. Not the real one, the Miller one. We're all familiar with habeas corpus, I know, but just to refresh for anyone who's not got the dates exactly as Glenn likes to provide. It's the legal principle that protected individuals from unlawful detention since the Magna Carta. That was in 1215. So that's like 800 plus years ago. So if we can go back to the Alien Enemies Act just a mere 130 years ago and say that's good, then I think something that's been a human right since 1215 probably is doing a good job. Otherwise, we'd have changed it by now. It's not like it's been on the books since 1215 and nobody's ever used it. It's a fundamental human right not to be locked up for no good reason. That's called kidnapping. That's called false imprisonment. You can't do it. Or can you? Just asking the question. You know me. He actually floated suspending the right of habeas corpus to citizens, to anybody, because the courts kept ruling against him. Yeah. Legal experts, because we thankfully still do have them, and they are doing their damnedest to keep the courts on the right path. They noted that the near universal consensus is that only Congress can suspend habeas corpus, not the president. But we all know that don't mean shit. Congress have to agree if you want to demolish half the White House, but he did it. Congress have to agree if you want to apply tariffs, but he did it. Congress have to be consulted if you want to go to war, but yet the country is at war and Congress have not been consulted. So I don't have an awful lot of faith in the you can't do it because that's unconstitutional argument, because it just doesn't seem to matter anymore. Hopefully it will. When the American Accountability Project gets into full swing, oh, I want a front row seat. I've already bought the popcorn. Georgetown law professor Steve Vladeck put it plainly: to casually suggest that habeas might be suspended because courts have ruled against the executive branch in a handful of immigration cases is to turn the suspension clause entirely on its head, and I cannot disagree. Miller, he called the judges blocking his deportations a judicial coup. Courts ruling against the executive branch. A coup. Not democracy functioning as it was designed to do. A coup. Without a second thought for the jeopardy that might put lawyers, judges, anybody involved in the defense and honest prosecution of law. And then, of course, there's El Salvador. Miller, if you didn't know, it won't surprise you, orchestrated alongside your former Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, the process by which alleged Venezuelan gang members were rendered to the Salvadorian prison, CECOP, in defiance of a court order. A federal judge, as some of you will know, later found probable cause that the administration had carried out the renditions in contempt of court. The judge's exact language: deliberately and gleefully. And I think that sums it up perfectly. Deliberately and gleefully. That's what a federal judge said about a White House official in 2025. Oh, the irony, because, there's got to be some. Now we arrive at that bit, the bit. The irony that should be printed on every press badge at every White House briefing where Stephen Miller opens his mouth about immigration. Stephen Miller's. Are you all sitting comfortably? I know Tamara's joined us. Hey, Tamara, lovely to have you here. Judine's joined us. So lovely that you can be here. Get yourselves comfy. We're nearing the end. We're in the final furlong, but this is a chef's kiss. Stephen Miller, fuck off immigrants, Stephen Miller. That's a nickname I've given him, not my belief. Just clear that up. His great great grandfather, Wolflieb Glosser, fled the Belarusian shtetl of Antipol, arriving in the United States in 1903 with $8 to his name, escaping the anti-Jewish pogroms. He was an immigrant. His own uncle, Dr. David Glosser, wrote a now legendary Politico op-ed calling his nephew, his own flesh and blood, an immigration hypocrite, writing, and I quote, "If my nephew's ideas on immigration had been in force a century ago, our family would have been wiped out." Thank you, Amy. The Glossers came to the US just a few years before the fear and prejudice of the America First nativists of that time closed US borders to Jewish refugees. That actually happened. Just a few years after they found safe passage to the United States, the doors were shut. Had Wolflieb waited, had he faced the Miller immigration system, his family would likely have been murdered by the Nazis, along with all but 7 of the 2,000 Jews who remained in Antipol, where they came from. 7 out of 2,000 remained. And that could easily have been Stephen Miller's ancestors had they not had the privilege of escaping and grasping the dream of a new life in the new world. And I find that really sad. I'm not sure irony really cuts it. It's despicable. Oh man. His great grandmother, and if you remember what we said at the beginning about how he would tell off Hispanic students for not speaking English, his great grandmother didn't speak English when she arrived. The man who built a career on demanding English-only assimilation and attacking immigrants for exactly that comes from a family that arrived penniless, non-English speaking, and in desperate need of the very asylum he'd spent his life dismantling. Uncle David's final words on his nephew, and I would like you to listen to this slowly because we're reaching the end. "I have watched with dismay and increasing horror as my nephew, who is an educated man and well aware of his heritage, has become the architect of immigration policies that repudiate the very foundation of our family's life in this country." I feel really bad for Uncle David, quite frankly. I feel really bad for anyone who's related to him. Stephen Miller, obviously, not Uncle David. Uncle David sounds like a decent bloke. Even his own family are appalled by him. Even Richard Spencer's half trying to protect him out of strategy, and Republican Capitol Hill staffers reportedly disliked him so intensely that they invented a rumor he liked to play with porcelain dolls. just to embarrass him. And that's just a rumor, no evidence to suggest he actually liked playing with porcelain dolls. His own side invented a rumor that he liked to play with porcelain dolls. That's how you know. That's how you know the kind of feelings that Stephen Miller engenders in those closest to him. So, Nosferatu, Dr. Frankenstein, small man syndrome. I think the verdict is in. And do we all agree? We find the defendant guilty on all counts. He has the look of Nosferatu. That's indisputable. The sunken cheeks, the intensity, the sense that he feeds on something other people would rather not think about, the dead-eyed stare across the press briefing room, the way he seems genuinely energized by human misery. He has the ambition of Dr. Frankenstein, someone who took all the ingredients of nativism, white nationalist literature, eugenics era thinking, and a decade of Capitol Hill access and built something. The monster is real. The policies exist. The children were separated. The deportation flights took off in defiance of court orders. He didn't just say the words, he built the very machine. But underneath it all, underneath the policy architecture, the legal maneuvers, the 900 emails, the habeas corpus threats, is the kid from Samohi who threw his rubbish on the floor and waited for somebody else to pick it up, who told Hispanic classmates to speak English, then sprinted to the head teacher when they dared to answer back, who wanted attention more than anything, who mistook cruelty for intelligence, and who found in Donald Trump the audience he'd been performing for his whole life. Small man syndrome in a really shitty suit. That's Stephen Miller, folks. We're at the end. I will post the show notes and receipts for paid subscribers because it takes a bit of extra work, and it's nice for the paid subscribers to get a little bit something extra. So I try to always put a little snippet. I don't know quite how Substack works, but I try to give you a little teaser taster. You know what they say. You just heard me say it. But if you want them and you want the receipts and where to get the information yourself, where to check my information, then you are very welcome. But yeah, you got to give a couple of quid. That's all I'm asking. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. It's been an experience tonight. I want to say a pleasure. I always find it intensely pleasurable expanding my mind. Every day should be a school day because we know so little in the grand scheme of things. And that's what I try to give you here. Just a little bit more information that you might not have had before. And I hope you enjoy it. And I hope you enjoy the way I present it. And you learn something. And I love you all for being here. Thank you so much. I appreciate you more than you know. But it's getting late. Glenn is on very, very soon. So I'm afraid, my darlings, for today, until Thursday when I'm back with Laura, hopefully if she's well, and Summer, hopefully if she's well, but it might just be me. You're going to have to come back on Thursday and find out. Until then, the cafe is now closed.